Now, I had a story up in the Post Millennial about the issue we discussed on Saturday, but Justin Trudeau's plane breaking down. Now, there's a couple of things I didn't mention in that broadcast that I mentioned in the story. And of course, some of the folks picked up on it because the irony of this whole story is that Justin Trudeau staying at a former slave plantation. I mean, what a guy. Thank you, Justin. Always doing something where the optics aren't good. But I find it fascinating that I picked this story up Saturday, and immediately thereafter, I saw other independent media broadcasters pick it up, and the interest level was high, very high. And it wasn't until Monday morning that I started seeing opinion columns in the mainstream media questioning what in the hell was Justin Trudeau doing back on this at this exclusive private resort in Jamaica for the second year in a row. You might remember he got into a hell of trouble when he stayed with the Aga Khan because the Aga Khan had received government contracts. And what the hell was Justin Trudeau doing at the Aga Khan's private island? So Trudeau thought about this and he said, well, we'll go to Jamaica the next time and we'll stay with an old friend who just happens to be a donor for the Trudeau Foundation. But it won't cost the taxpayers a cent because it's all going to be free. Is this guy a classic slummer or what? He can't even pay for his own vacation. He's always got to get somebody else to pick up the tab. You know people like this when you go out to dinner or you go to the bar. They're the people who will wait and wait and wait until somebody else picks up the check. And they're usually the person with the most money in the bank. They're the richest person in the group, but yet somebody else has got to pay for them. And Justin Trudeau is that man. He's the one who stays at the table until somebody else picks up the check. There's a famous story about Pablo Picasso and Charlie Chaplin, both of whom were communists. They called themselves communists. Chaplin may be a socialist. Picasso called himself a communist. They're both far left in their economic theory and their politics. They once had lunch together in Switzerland, and they both refused to pick up the check because they were both not only leftists, but cheap leftists. Extremely cheap. And they waited literally for, I think it was 3 hours until one of them finally relented, picked up the check because they both expected somebody else to buy the meal. That's what Justin Trudeau was like. Somebody else is going to pick up the tab for all of his expenses. If it's not you, the taxpayer, it's somebody else. But I'm finally seeing some columnists out there saying something wrong with this picture, folks. Why is our prime minister staying at a resort that costs $9,300 a month? A night, excuse me, a night. Yeah, maybe a month would make more sense. But as people are suffering in Canada, as people can't afford to pay the bills, as people can't afford to gas their car, as people can't afford to heat their home. I just read a story this morning about a mother who's doing without food so her children can eat. People are lining up at food banks across the country in the freezing cold because they can't afford to buy groceries. And Justin Trudeau is living it up in the lap of luxury in Jamaica. Beautiful sunny climes, private pool, gorgeous white sand beach, all the amenities, the hot tub, the good food, the fine wine that he loves so much. And he's living like this. And I understand he's going to Australia this month too. He's taking a second trip to another warm part of the world so he can avoid the Canadian winter Where's he going to stay then? Another old friend of the family? We don't know yet, but believe me, I am going to find out. Because once again, he'll be slumming. And once again, he'll be living in luxury while you and I have to suffer here. While you and I can't seem to make enough money for the budget to work. And I know I'm talking to the converted here. You know that I'm saying what we all are feeling and what we all know is true. We're making the same amount of money we made a year ago or 2 years ago, but it's not going anywhere near as far. We feel like we're working harder than ever. We're working more than ever. And we're always out of money. Not a problem for Justin Trudeau. He can stay at a $10,000 a night resort and have a great time. And not even think that there's a problem with that picture. Not even think that that looks pretty damn hypocritical for a guy who does an end of the year interview and says, I feel your pain.
Some people don't buy that, though.
I understand how tough it is right now.
Yeah.
I understand what Canadians are going through. Bullshit. You don't understand what Canadians are going through because you've never gone through it. You have lived in luxury from the time you were raised. It's always been smooth sailing for you. It's always been easy. And you don't understand what Canadians are going through this January or any January. It's always been a different kind of life for you. It's always been a different kind of existence because it's always been paid for. So it is an outrage. Yeah, and I bring it up again, not just because his plane broke down, brand new 2020 Canadian Forces Challenger, by the way. This wasn't the Polaris this time that broke down. It was a Challenger. And it's like, what, 4 years old? And they're breaking down? Yeah, that's an outrage. But it's more of an outrage he was in Jamaica in the first place doing that. And it's just, somebody said, well, why are you worried about Trudeau's vacations? Well, every time he leaves the country, I worry because he does something stupid. He says something stupid. Remember, every time he goes to India, he makes a complete ass of himself. Walks around in traditional Indian garb, tries the local dances, constantly has pictures taken. The last time he was in India, of course, he picked a fight with the Indian Prime Minister. And that didn't go down too well. And of course, yes, his jet, his Polaris that time, broke down and he was sitting on the runway for 2 days. But this time, yeah, he had another breakdown.
Now, after the plane fiasco in India, there's been another embarrassment for Justin Trudeau, this time in Jamaica. Canadian Prime Minister Trudeau's plane has broken down once again. In fact, his plane had faced a technical snag while he was in India in September last year. After the plane fiasco that took place in India, there's been another embarrassing situation for Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. This time, the embarrassment took place in Jamaica. The Canadian Prime Minister's plane has broken down once again. His plane has now faced a technical snag. A similar snag had taken place in his plane when he was in India in September last year.
But the real breakdown was in his ability to think. Going to Jamaica in December was not a good idea. And not a good idea to pretend Canadians don't care and don't notice, because they do. So I am going to keep my finger on the universal basic income and on Trudeau's vacations, which will continue this month, and we're going to let you know what's going on. Hi, this is David Crayden from Crayden's Right and Stand on Guard. Join the resistance. Resolve to resist. Become a member of this station. I've been practicing journalism in one form or another for over 30 years. I've worked in print, radio, and television for a lot of prestigious publications and media outlets. I was an Armed Forces Public Affairs officer. I worked on Parliament Hill. I know how Ottawa works, and I know how corrupt federal government can be. But you can play a part in opposing Justin Trudeau's government and Justin Trudeau's plans for Canada. You can become a part of the KRAYDEN'S Right Resistance. Now, I urge you today, please support this station in any way you can. Ring that bell, subscribe, because that ensures you're at least going to continue to be able to watch these episodes. You'll beat the algorithm. But more importantly, I need your financial support. I hate to ask, but that's what I'm doing. I made a decision to pursue independent media because I believed it was the best possible route for me to take as a journalist and as a concerned citizen of Canada. So you can become a part of that. And at only $5, you can become a part of that on YouTube, on Substack, and with Buy Me a Coffee, a one-time donation. But I need your support. And from the bottom of my heart, I thank you. If you've already done that, if you're already supporting the station, thank you. But if you haven't, make that decision today.